speaking of fantastic journalist impressionists, I think she must have been talking about Brian Karem,
Yes.
White House reporter from Playboy magazine, who has already done the entire It's a Wonderful Life for us this morning. Good morning, Brian.
Use pedals. Wonderful savings and loan.
See, I didn't know because we're at that time of year. Hang on.
Guess what?
Yeah.
We're saying Merry Christmas again.
Happy New Year to you in jail.
Okay.
Perfect. I couldn't have set that one up better myself.
Yeah.
Well, you spoke about that with Michael Cohen. You've been in the news so much, sir. We had to have you on. But you spoke about that with Michael Cohen. You have a podcast called Just Ask the Question, which I love.
Yes, ma'am.
But so you said Cohen believes Trump has done the math, figures of his 74 million voters, he could successfully con about 20 million of them to continue donating money to him. He said he knows he can't go back to real estate. He knows he has to leave the White House in January, but if he can get a large enough number of his supporters to send him money, then he's set. That's what he wants. I mean, once a grifter, always a grifter, right?
Yeah, and if you don't recognize he's a grifter, you're the mark.
Right. But you wrote a great piece. You said Trump's feverish, delusional, insane, perhaps seditious denial of his loss, coupled with his ability to twist people into a knot and partner with idiots like Giuliani and most of the White House senior staff, have produced an environment that is ripe for violence, which we were just talking about with a caller, Brian, before the break, in this latest Michigan thing, violent mobs surrounding the Secretary of State's house. You said he wants to protect his bottom line, but he's never able to contain the Frankenstein monster he's created, triggered racists, sycophants, marginalized Americans who believe Trump's given them permission to access the very worst versions of themselves and threaten the world around them for perceived and often erroneous indiscretions. So the irony that Trump in his frenzied delusional anger is not only a hypocrite, but a vile, dangerous lunatic who threatens to own post-White House, who threatens his own post-White House existence. But I have always said this, Brian, the more and more final it gets, whether that's December 14th and the Electoral College, is there going to be a real and widespread violence?
Well, he doesn't want widespread violence. That's not good for his bottom line.
Right.
But if there is some marginal violence, he'll take that violence because it won't threaten his bottom line. Now, his triggered base may have different ideas. And like I said, he can't control them no matter how much he tries. He just wants money. I agree with Cohen. I think he's done the bottom line math. He's not the most brilliant guy in the world, but he can figure an angle, and he does know how to add when it's for him.
Yeah.
Not for the U.S., but when it's for him. So he's done the math and figured out if he continues to bilk some of these people, he'll go on and make a living or be able to pay his debts off or maybe his legal fees, because he's staring at possible prosecution in the state of New York, no matter what he decides to do as far as pardoning himself or pardoning his family members at the federal level. The state of New York is a little more discriminating and they're a little tougher. So he'll have problems once he leaves the White House. All of this is just him setting himself up for life after the White House. He's not taking into consideration the base. He's not taking into consideration the country, and therefore, violence is indeed a possibility.
I mean, he really does feel cornered. Like this is a furious bid to avoid prison, basically, at this point. I mean, do you feel like we're going to see this pardon palooza? They're talking about like 20 people, including himself and his kids, and I mean, it's going to be right. It started in corruption. It's just going to end in an explosion of corruption, isn't it?
Well, it's chaos in a blender, as I've said since day one, and it'll go out that way. And he wants as much attention on him as he can. That's what he thrives on. It's frightening in that regard. I mean, but you can see what the pardons are going to lead to. He already pardoned Michael Flynn, who's come out and said, "Hey, suspend the Constitution for dear Donald, Herr Trump."
Right.
And so the traitors, the sedition, it'll all continue as long as he can continue making money, whatever. Yeah. He can't go back into real estate. What's he going to do to make money? He's not going to go back on television. He may start his own network, but that's not that he'd ever really do any work, but he's, trying to line himself up a revenue stream when he gets out of office. And, the Trump medicine show going on tour with rallies and protests and lights and flashes and T-shirts and hats. That's what he's got.
Yeah. And did he inadvertently tell the truth the other day? He said, I've never worked so hard as these last few days doing this. Like literally trying to stay out of prison.
Yeah.
I mean, trying to overturn the election. Right.
Well, he certainly never worked hard in the White House. He spent, think of that. He spent a quarter of the 4 years in office on the back nine at his various country clubs.
Yeah.
He spent a full year golfing.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do? The guy's a nut.
Well, and you said it. You said you're reading the Pool Report from Georgia. You said, reminds me of covering a tin horn dictator in a banana republic, a con man promoting violence, not a leader of a great nation, a pure bully. 46, now we're at 43 days left. Oh, my God.
Woo-hoo!
It's going to be the longest 43 days in our life, right?
Yep.
But, God bless you, Brian Karem. You were the New York Times opinion piece. You quoted, we journalists should have been tougher on Mr. Trump, questioning his every lie and insult. We should have not let him get away with racism and xenophobia. And you said, speak for yourself. Some of us have pushed hard against every lie. Some of us pushed back from day one, even when others would not. Some of us fought him in court and won repeatedly. We have no regrets. And you said, if there's members of the press who have second thoughts after playing the access game and sacrificing their independence, good. I, for one, do not. Rockstar cheers for you, Brian Karem.
Thank you.
I mean, some of the only
For
truths.
my next number. Well, I'm telling you,
There, Rodney. Yes.
Hey now.
Honestly, but
Ainsley.
I mean, it is amazing. You know what made it so stark, Brian, when you were in the White House press room, is some of the only truth or actual questions asked were the ones that you shouted after they ended it. And then you're like, oh, yes, that's what we'd like an answer to, right?
Yes. Well, in the beginning, I got in a, little scruff with Sean Spicer the day he came out. It started out like 2 or 3 months in when he came out and said, they were talking about Syria and the dangers. And he said, well, he's worse than Hitler. Hitler never killed his people. And I said, Sean, he gassed the Jews. And he goes, oh, yeah, the Holocaust relocation centers. And it kind of went down.
Oh, God.
There. Yeah. So then there was a couple of incidents with his, with the woman who replaced him with Sarah Huckabee Sanders. And then Stephanie Grisham never came out once.
Right.
And then this woman came out. And when Kayleigh McEnany took over, she didn't do anything until COVID restrictions came in and limited the number of people in the briefing room to about 12. And at that point in time, I'm not in the pool, so all I can do is stand in the back of the room. She doesn't want to call on me, but I'll be damned if I'm going to sit through a briefing of that type of chicanery and not at least mention the question that everybody wants an answer to. That's what we're there for. I don't really care too much about the access. I've never had it. I don't care for it. I really don't want to be that close to these people.
Yeah.
But when they're out in the public, they damn sure should answer some questions. And I got to be honest with you. I've never understood one time whenever I've been in a room with the president and I've raised my hand, the SOB is called on me. So I figure he either likes the fight or he's an idiot or both. And so I've been able to ask him some pointed questions. And the last one I asked him was in September, on September 23rd, when I said, win, lose, or draw, will you agree to a peaceful transfer of power? And we're living the nightmare of his answer on that day, and we have since September 23rd.
What did he say exactly? I forgot.
He said, well, not if you don't count all the votes, there won't be a peaceful trial. I'll stay in power. I was like, well, there's an answer for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
He ain't going gentle into that good night.
Oh my God. Wait, I have to play this for you because I will die mad about what this country did to Hillary Clinton. But Brian, this is part of the coverage, the way they covered Hillary Clinton. And did she not warn us about everything? Specifically, she warned us of everything that is happening. But remember this in the debate?
Every time Donald thinks things are not going in his direction, he claims whatever it is rigged against him. He lost the Iowa caucus. He lost the Wisconsin primary. He said the Republican primary was rigged against him. Then Trump University gets sued for fraud and racketeering. He claims the court system and the federal judge is rigged against him. There was even a time when he didn't get an Emmy for his TV program 3 years in a row, and he started tweeting that the Emmys were rigged against him.
Should have gotten it.
This is a mindset. This is how Donald thinks. And it's funny, but it's also really troubling.
Yes. Well, nailed it. And but look, we've known about Donald Trump. If you didn't know about Donald Trump before he ran for office, and I confess I never watched one episode of that crappy program that he ran. But if you didn't know he was a con artist, you knew it from the day when he came out and made fun of a handicapped reporter.
Yeah.
And you knew it from day one when after he won and he came in and had Sean Spicer lie about the size of his inaugural crowd. There was no hope at that point that the man was going to step outside of himself and take on the real responsibilities of the president. He was just going to grift for 4 years.
Yeah.
If you didn't know that, if you didn't know he couldn't change, if you didn't know that he was not capable of rising to the occasion, you were told that on day one. And after calling me fake news and enemy of the people, if you did not fire back, if you did not stand up to the bully, you were complicit in what he did. And I will never forgive. There are some reporters who should have known better and didn't. You're not a stenographer. He changed the rules. My dad always told me, look, the only way to react to a bully is to stand up and thump him in the nose. So that's what I did. And there are others that did it, and more should have done it.
Can you do me one last favor? Can you please call her Kelly one more time when you're in the White House press corps?
Please.
We talked about this last week. Is this not a ridiculous thing that all these right-wing women do? They scream misogyny and they're all liars. And when they get called on their lies, then you're being a misogynist. So Kelly McInerney, she called you out for shouting misogynistic questions at you. She said, if you're a female woman, okay,
as opposed to
in the Republican Party who takes that podium, guess what your worry is? Having a Playboy reporter shout questions at you. You have a Playboy reporter shouting at women in a misogynistic manner simply because they're a member of the GOP. And as you tweeted, you said lame. Donald Trump failed 3 times in court to ban me. Speaking truth to power is not misogyny. You work for a misogynist. Your briefings are propaganda. You failed the American people who pay your salary. You're sore because you can't answer questions honestly. Of course, she didn't explain how anything that you asked was misogynistic.
Right.
Anything you
I listed all of them in the last column that I wrote. Everything I've asked her in the last few months. She just doesn't like me shouting those questions at her. And the chief of staff, Mark Meadows, both of them have complained to the White House Correspondents Association. And this is not how it's done. And I'm going, apparently they never saw Sam Donaldson on TV or Helen Thomas or numerous others back in the day when that's what they did do.
I mean,
That's
Brian, but it's such a thing. Sarah Huckabee Sanders does it. Kellyanne Conway does it. Kelly does it. They all scream misogyny. They all say, "Oh, it's because I'm a woman." It's because you're a lying woman that is lying. But they always say, "Oh, they're being, sexist against us because we're Republican women," and you're like, "What? No."
No, I'm just I'd ask the question of anyone. Was I being misogynistic when I did the same thing to anybody, to Sean Spicer or before him? I had back in the day before Junior, when Senior was there, Bush, and he told me to sit down in a press conference. Was I being misogynistic to him when I asked him about the problems of drugs in this country? No, it's just the question.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with the question. The problem is in their answers. They have none.
Yeah.
And since they have no answers, what they try to do is to deflect. And to me, that's childlike. I mean, my kids did it when they were 5 or 6 years old, and you school them up and you go, no, take responsibility for what you did. These people, Kayleigh McEnany is in over her head, but as is everyone on that staff, including the chief of staff, including the president of the United States. They have been in over their head for 4 years, and they're drowning and trying to pull people down with them.
Yep.
Ain't going to work.
So let's ask the pop quiz before you go, Brian Karem. Kian S. Moss Mal, who's the worst? Was it Sean Spicer, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, or Kayleigh McEnany?
Or Stephanie Grisham, but we never really saw Stephanie. She's the one who tried to pull my press pass. So I guess if I wanted to say the worst, I guess it would be she started that. But I would have to say it was the last one. They've been steadily declining since Sean. And Sarah Huckabee Sanders actually off camera was nice and relatable, and you could talk to her. Same with Sean. I never got a chance to with Stephanie, and Kaylee McEnany just avoids me.
Yeah.
So I would have to go with Kaylee McEnany as the worst of the bunch.
Good answer. Good answer. And the podcast is Just Ask the Question.
Yes.
Michael Cohen was his latest guest, and it's fantastic. Love you, Brian. Thanks for taking time.
Sure, anytime.
Would you like to end with an impression before you go?
Let's see. Who do I have?
Uh-oh.
I've done them all.
Did you do Mr. Potter? I don't think so. Did you?
You guys, but I could do James Carville.
All right.
When I interviewed him for Playboy. I'm just an old guy. What do I know?
Perfect. Love you, Brian Karem.